Hello and welcome. What's going on with this? There we go. Oh, I can just do this and it goes away. Let me sort that filter out with the chroma correction. Exactly the same chroma correction as used last night, and yet somehow I don't want to lose my arm. There we go. Who knows? Anyway, welcome. Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments Midweek Model Meet. Not quite in the middle of the week. And April's unboxings. So obviously April Fool's Day yesterday. I put out a video in the morning and we had the launch of Artemis 2, the SLS mission to the moon to fly around it. Which I think was the same as, was it Apollo 9 or something? Did that? Can't remember. Seeing as I wasn't alive at the time. But yes, we delayed the unboxings for today. And interestingly, we have a real mix of old and new, and a bit of a space theme in there as well. So let me take you across to the screen. This is what the poll, which I updated about 15 minutes ago, came in. So we have the Henry Morgan pirate ship in first place by quite some way, and then the brand new Kotare Bf 109 K4, then the Atlantis reissued William Ley orbital rocket from the 50s, and then the ICM Marauder crew, and then border model Luke's if we get that far. So a real mix of very old and very new. So interesting to see that. My volume's a bit low, is it? It looks all good on my monitor. Is it low for everybody, or is it just for David Markey? Please let me know. Question: why are you not in space, Alex? Good question. I've often wondered that myself. I do feel like sometimes I am, or at least in the future, a dystopian future. Although good news, Pam Bondi was fired today. Couldn't happen to a nicer lady. I don't think reveling over others' displeasure is nice, but Schadenfreude sometimes is quite nice. What an odious human being she is. So some people are saying that the volume is low. Some people are saying that the volume is okay. For me, I got my little microphone monitor here is showing me. I've got it up to maximum and I'm in the green, so I don't think there's much I can do here to change anything else other than coming physically closer. That might help. So anyway, hopefully you can hear me. So we're going to start off with that Henry Morgan, Sir Henry Morgan, I should say, Sir Henry Morgan pirate ship. So this is, look at this. Look at that. Look at that moustache. That's quite something, isn't it? So let me take you across to the screen and the Sir Henry Morgan pirate ship. So this is a Lindberg original kit. This is obviously a Lindberg impression of it. It's not a new one. Obviously it is second-hand. This came into the shop some time ago in a collection of bits and bobs. The box is a little bit tatty, which is one of the reasons I've not put it up for sale. But I thought actually it would be quite an interesting thing to put into, the unboxing lottery, as it were, so that you guys could have a look at it. So it is a top opening box, but it is hinged. In fact, let me show you. You turn it upside down, and then you see you get the the unhinging reveal. So it is not bagged, obviously, second hand. I don't know if it ever came bagged. I presume it did. And then we got a whole bunch of sprues. So what I'll do is I'll take the box out, I'll put the stuff on here, and then we'll go from there. He says as he throws paper around. So let's start with some hull action. Actually, I'm not sure. Don't think this has the instructions in. No. So we will have to guess as to the fit, but let's face it, the instructions of an old Lindberg kit are probably not going to help you that much anyway. And it is pretty easy to see how things go together. But just in terms of the kit itself, this doesn't look bad. You have very, very out of scale, obviously. Let's just make sure, let's see if I can get that focused a little bit better. I think that's as good as we're going to get. Yeah, pretty out of scale wood effect. You know, these these wavy lines would be some pretty coarsely cut planks, but you know, it gives the impression, and model making then was not what it is now. This is obviously a fun subject. We do have a few sink marks indicative of the technology at the time, but actually this is a pretty complex piece. You know, we've got a big curved piece. Obviously we don't have too much detail on here, although this piece is not bad. But this is obviously the main face where they spent most of the time in actually detailing things. And it has to be said. What am I talking about? You know, the detail is overdone. It is a bit crude, but it's not bad, and it's pretty clean. There's a few little bits of flash, but again, considering the injection molding machines and how this was tooled, so this would have been, you know, hand machined. It's not too bad. There's a little bit of flash in here, but again, just skinning membrane rather than anything too bad. Again, little sink marks along here, mainly where you've got these pieces. Now with a modern tooling, you would probably be able to design the tool to get away with that, or actually you would probably have this piece, I imagine, tooled separately from that. But obviously back in the day, the more pieces you tooled, the more pieces of metal you had to cut into. I mean, this would be a relatively complex tool. And it has to be said, some of the things like the ejection pin location, I mean, they are a bit rough, but it makes sense, right? They're on glue faces. You've got these big ones here, but they're going to be covered. So actually, the design of this actually follows some pretty good, logical, common sense cues. And it's a, you know, it's a decent sized kit. That's not bad. So I'm just looking at the chat, and as always, guys, if you've got questions, comments, QQQ, CCC, or question or comments in big capital letters so I can spot it, because I'm spending most of the time looking here and not over at the screen. So I appreciate you need to catch my attention for me to call these things out. But it's a fair size. It's pretty nicely tooled and moulded. you know, none of this is in scale. You know, the thickness of that is huge. What's the nominal scale on this? 1/96 or something? Does it even quote a scale? Let me have a look at the box. You spot anything here? 1/160th scale. Okay. So that is about 2.5, maybe 3 millimeters across in thickness. That's a pretty big plank. Yeah. So say that's, let's be generous, 2.5. So that's 40 centimeters. That's, well, I don't know. No, 40 millimeters. Wait a minute. No. 1 millimeter is going to be 160 millimeters. Oh, that's huge. That's 400 millimeters. So that is 0.4 of a meter in actual scale, which is absolutely huge. Let's just put this light here. That might show it a bit better. Is that better? Or is that worse? Let me switch that off and see if it's any better. No, that's worse, right? There we go. So yes, it is out of scale, but this isn't designed as a 1-to-1 replica or 1/160th replica. It's a bit of fun. You have some moulded in ropes on the deck here. Obviously the location log for a couple of the masts. Let's have a look at some of the rest of the kit. Now, interestingly, you don't have to do rigging because they supply it in plastic, which, again, these are about 1 millimeter across, so this rope would be like a 6-inch wide rope, which is, it's indicative. And yet here you've got this big lantern, which actually is not too bad. Okay, massively out of scale again in terms of how thick these bars would be. But interesting. That one's got a little bit bent. It's unsurprising, really. And yet, actually, the anchors here, see, these anchors are actually fairly delicate by comparison. Just got my scalpel. In fact, if you look at how thick the anchor is compared to the deck cover here, these are much thicker, almost twice as thick in some areas, and on par with this rigging. So I feel you could probably improve this model by perhaps making your own rigging rather than relying on the plastic, but the plastic would make it very easy. So if this was going to be probably back in the 60s or 70s for a child, plastic rigging easy to do. So depending on your target market, that's a valid strategy. So again, there is flash, obviously, quite a bit around these crow's nests, which are in 2 halves. But overall, we've got one of these little, whatever these are, cleats or whatever, missing. Another one about to come off. But overall, not too bad. Masts are all good. There's no warping in any of those. So overall, that's not looking too bad, I would say. Now, some interesting pieces for me. The sails. Injection molded sails. I don't know why. more companies that make these kinds of ships, or made these kinds of ships, don't do this, because you've got filled and fully out, and they are curved. They're actually not too bad in terms of thickness. And again, would you prefer to do this and have it slightly out of scale, or have vac form and all of the problems that come with vac form? For me, I would probably go with injection moulding every time. The little launches, they look pretty good. All of whatever these are, something to do with sails. I'm not a sailing ship guy, as you probably know. But that actually all looks pretty good. I'm quite impressed with that. It's pretty clean, and actually no yellowing in the plastic, which is quite astonishing for the age of it. So that, I think, is pretty solid. Right, we have more sails. Oh, and a rather epic looking pennant there. Oh, the flag blowing in the breeze. All very good. Little nameplate. We did have parts of the stand earlier, you may have seen as well. So again, some of this, you know, these smaller parts can need a bit of cleanup, but actually overall not looking bad. I think, you know, you've got nice lines on here for the ropes. I don't know what the names of any of these ropes. I'm sure Craig would know. But it all looks quite nice. I quite like these injection moulded sails. Little ejector pin mark there. Little Lindberg logo on the back. Pretty good. Right, then we get some odd little bits of sprue for the other pieces of the hull here. So these are obviously all of the internal deck areas along here, the rear, and with all these windows which are actually just impressed into the plastic. There's no transparencies here. That's just indicative, really. But you know, it's very much of its time, obviously, but not a bad looking tooling. Again, if that was a knot in a tree, 1/160th scale, that is about 8 millimeters across. That's absolutely huge. That's about 1.5 meters across. I suppose it's possible, but yeah, I think it's stylistic representation rather than reproduction, let's say. So obviously quite a bit more flash on some of these pieces, but again, it's not huge. It's quite thin. It's only membrane type. It's not going to cause you any problems in terms of trimming off. You know, if you need to get rid of this is, you know, easily just breaks off. So I don't know what all these little things. Oh, these will be the cannons. Those are the cannons. I see. So again, what are those? But then I realised they've got little wheels on them. So those are all of the cannons for your broadsides there. Ah, that makes much more sense. So all of these little white pieces here are your cannon barrels. It's got quite a lot, has to be said. So it was originally bagged. Oh, and there's that little cleat that was missing. So actually, I think we have all of the pieces. we do have the original little spool of thread, which actually is not bad thread. I've seen the Revell sort of kits that they sell in Aldia or Lidl at Christmas. In fact, I've got a couple, and the thread they do is much thicker and hairier than that. That actually isn't too bad. We have another mast. We have this little piece which has come off, and we have this little piece which has come off. Oh, that looks like it goes right at the back here, maybe. So I shall put all of those back in this bag so that we can keep it as complete as possible. And then the last element that's in here are the decals. Now let me just try and get this all secreted away. Just to keep the pieces safe. There we go. And then we can have a look at these decals, which actually look quite neat. So obviously we have skull and crossbones in abundance for the pennant, for the flag, or flags I should say, and Captain Morgan pirate ship for the little display piece. Printed in USA. And actually, they don't look in bad condition. Those look pretty good. Now, one of the things I should probably do, let me just go back to the webcam, have a look at chat. Travis, you're absolutely right. You could have enough fun with it out of the box, not trying to modernise it. Just scrolling back just to see. The anchors weigh 10 kilograms and the lanterns weigh 5 tons. Yeah, possibly. So yeah, so Simon, in DR1, I think modern manufacturing could, you know, if they were to do injection molded sails, they could look pretty good. I mean, those look pretty good. So I don't think you have to make them that much thinner, to be honest, because if you make them too much thinner, you're going to lose a lot of the structure, and it's going to get more towards, you know, the vac form that we all loathe. Not all loathe. Some people like vac form. Right. I just want to see when this kit was produced. Okay. So let's go back to the screen. So the Sir Henry Morgan pirate ship, Lindberg number 70859. No, this boxing was actually released in sometime in the 2000s. That's interesting. And the original was 1993. I thought it was much older. Wow, would you credit it? I wouldn't have thought that. Okay, that puts it in a slightly different light for a 90s kit. That's pretty shocking. And that was in the 2000s. Wow. Yeah, interesting. I really didn't think that was the case. I thought this was from the 60s. Okay, for a 90s kit, that's pretty rough. That's pretty rough. But hey, there we go. So it's a fun kit, right? It's it's not something that I think you would take too seriously if you really wanted to do a high quality sailing ship. It's probably not your first choice, but it's an interesting subject, and it looks quite fun. So I'm astonished, really astonished, that it was re-released in 2000 or something, and it comes from 1993. I mean, I know we've come a long way from the 90s, but some 90s kits, I think that Academy Skyrocket was a 90s kit, of similar sort of age. So, yeah, that's pretty wild. Well, if anybody wants a second-hand Sir Henry Morgan, let me know. Give me your offers. No brass monkeys, no. The saying "cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey" originated with wooden ships. I thought it was from pawn shops, from the 3 balls hanging outside a pawn shop, which were known as a brass monkey. Interesting. Steve still plays games. Alex, any chance of a TLI stream later tonight? TLI? I'm missing the context for that. You'll have to spell it out. I'm being stupid. I don't know why. I don't know whether I didn't sleep well last night. I've been absolutely knackered all day. And it's not the fact that, I went to bed after the launch, because I normally go to bed at that sort of time. It's not unusual for me at all. I could send it to Marcus, couldn't I? It doesn't contain enough etched brass, though. So, translunar injection. Is that what's going on? Do you know, I asked Alexa earlier what's going on with the Artemis mission, and all it said, I'll come back to that. All it said was like, it launched yesterday. It's like, yeah, I know it launched. I want to know what's happening with it now. Alexa, I think, is, and some of you will have heard me talk about this before, part of the N-shitification. So that is something, in fact, I'll type it in chat. This is the N-shitification. It's a phrase that's been used by a couple of commentators on about modern society over the last 5 to 10 years, let's say, within the last decade, about how services and things have gradually got worse. They're being N-shitified. And Alexa is one of those. Alexa used to be very useful, I found, in setting alarms and schedules and all this kind of stuff. Now she's absolutely shit. In terms of, you ask her something, it's far easier just to go on your phone and Google it. There's a lot of things she won't answer. Anything that is like edgy, currently political or anything, nothing. It's like the level of sort of self-censorship in it seems to be outrageous. I find that with all Amazon stuff. I've dissociated myself from Amazon as far as I possibly can, because it's just a service that used to be very useful, and now that everybody got used to it, they've gradually lowered the standards, and this is the whole thing about N-shitification. But Matt, apparently the cannonballs for the guns were kept on brass holders next to the guns, which they called a monkey. When the weather is cold, the brass contracts and the balls pop off. I wonder which of them is correct, or if in fact it's one of those things that there's a lot of theories. It's a bit like FUCK, right? Which a lot of people say, that's it's an abbreviation, it's an acronym of for unlawful carnal knowledge. That's absolutely not true. It's a old wives' tale. That it doesn't come from that at all. That is a modern interpretation of Old English, and there's a lot of that. And you've got to be quite careful about some of these things, because they make sense, right? It seems like something that, that makes sense, and it's not. So it's a bit like with modelling, right? Check your references. Don't just take it as read that a manufacturer knows what they're talking about, or a website knows what it's talking about, or verify if you want to. I mean, like with the Captain Morgan, if you just want to build it for fun, you go ahead and do it. If you're trying to be quote unquote accurate, or reproduce a historical photo or something, or a particular aircraft, then you do need to double check a lot of this stuff sometimes, because there's an awful lot of BS that's sort of roaming around. It's one of the reasons that I think that the dependence on the internet rather than books is a bad thing, because books need to be peer reviewed and published, right? There's money involved, so there's checks and balances. There are none of that on the internet. So anyway, complete aside, I'm interested to know now what the actual origin of that phrase is, which of those it is, or if it's something completely different, or those are just kind of these colloquial things that have come up. But anyway, Matt also says price goes up, quality or offering of service reduces. Have seen it with Cadbury's chocolate. Well, Cadbury's chocolate is a big one, because that was bought back in the, was it 90s or early noughties by Kraft, the American food company, and yeah, they ruined Cadbury's, unfortunately. Still better than Galaxy, but just throw that one out there and then run away. Oh, Henry Morgan was operating as a privateer rather than a pirate, so apparently he flew the Union flag. Again, it's one of those things, has he just got those pirate flags because that's what we think of as a pirate? And so, who knows, right? You've got to, if you're interested enough, and sometimes I think, for me, this is a really interesting part of modelling. And I know we'll get back to unboxing in a second, but I'll kind of try and tie this thread back into it. The research of a subject, for me, is part of the modelling experience. Now, I'm not saying that's the same for everybody. Some people, don't care. They just want to put some plastic together. Sometimes I want to do that as well. Completely valid experience. But, for example, when I did the FX 124 scale Spitfire, and I use this as an example quite a lot because I didn't know Johnny Johnson was our high-scoring ace in World War II. And I've read a lot of World War II stuff, histories and things, but never specifically really about our British fighter aces. And so when it was suggested that I do that aircraft for the channel, and I realised, hey, Johnny Johnson is a number, I got his autobiography, I read that, and really wanted to know about the whole thing and the whole bit about whether his Canadian maple leaf was red or green. All of that, to me, is a really interesting part of the experience. So if I was going to do this pirate ship, I'm not. I just want to put that out there. Then that's kind of something I would want to know. I would know as much as I could about it, which would be difficult probably because this is, 17th century? So it's going to be, history is going to be really, you go back and things get muddier and muddier. But anyway, coming back and tying that into the next unboxing, accuracy is something that was very much on the minds of Kotare as a company and producing this, the Messerschmitt Bf 109K4. See, I told you I'd link it back, however tenuously. So let me put you on screen. That's the wrong screen. There we go. So these arrived in the shop this week. This is the Kotare Bf 109K4 in 1/32 scale. I believe I have this cheaper than anybody else in the UK. I think. Certainly cheaper than Jadlam. Just bear that in mind. So this is $74.99 retail. I'm selling it for $68. And we'll see what we get in the box for that. So I must say it's a nice box. This kind of matte, slightly satin finish, nice artwork, great rendition of a very typical late war Bf 109 scheme. You get sort of standard stuff around the edges, some more schemes. Interestingly, a captured one, as well as a couple of other late war schemes. Obviously, all late war because the K was the ultimate expression of Willy Messerschmitt's design. Very nice, smooth opening top lift-up box, and it is full. It's also nice and rigid. This is that single thin corrugated card, so it's pretty stiff. There's a tiny bit of flex in the box, but this is robust. These also came in cartons of 12 in a really thick, rigid box, which had plastic protectors on each corner, and it's just, you guys don't see any of that. So it's only trade that ever sees that, you know, the kind of care that's taken in packaging stuff so that it arrives at its destination to retailers, to trade, for sale. I really appreciate that. So a little unseen fact that I think Kotare, you know, should be praised for. So we've got clear sprue. These are individually bagged frames, which is nice to see. And we have the main fuselage, what seems to be landing gear, other bits, the main wings, flying surfaces, other flying surfaces, cowlings, propeller, landing gear. All very good. We'll come to all of that shortly. Let's get the box over to the side, and then in another bag. Oh no, another 2 bags. Oh, that's very nice. So bagged decals, I always think is a good idea. I know there's an argument about, you know, reducing plastic and all that kind of stuff, but I think when you've already got these bags, I think the extra bit for bagging decals, for me, I would much rather that. Recyclable plastic film is pretty common these days, so I don't see any reason not to have that, if you see what I mean. And then what seems to be a very sturdy and quite substantial instruction manual. Wow, that is as blunt as anything. Oh no, it did cut it. Ah. So, here we go. I think I'm going to switch this off. No, it makes no difference. That's actually coming from my main light. I'll just angle it slightly. So, Kotare K32009. Description here. Quite a large description of the aircraft, its combat service, some specs at the bottom here. This is really high quality paper. Glossy, which obviously is giving us a little bit of issue here. Warning symbols, all that kind of stuff. Nice full colour symbology here as well. That's quite good. Decals, frame trees, including parts not for use. That's interesting that they've got quite a few pieces actually not for use. I wonder then if these are common frames with perhaps some future variants. I mean, there's very little reason to have unused pieces if you're not going to have future variants. I know they're doing an E, but I wouldn't have thought there's that much commonality, although these are smaller frames off a central one, so it could be that those are kind of interesting. Point to ponder, that one, I think. Okay, colour chart. Oh, this is very nice. So we have all of the colours, the actual wartime colours cited. RLMO 2, 74, 75, etc. And then we've got Tamiya, SMS, Mr. Hobby, Mr. Colour, Mr. Paint, Atom, and AK 3rd Gen references there. That will please a lot of people. Decal guide for the cockpit. So we have individual decals. We'll obviously see those a little bit. and where they all go. They look pretty good if they're going to be anything like these pictures, which I expect they probably will be. That's very nice. We have an in memoriam there, which is quite nice. The in memoriam is actually 2 concentration camp victims, which is kind of a sobering piece, but I think it's quite good to call these things out on an aircraft which was obviously produced to defend a pretty hideous ideology. Cockpit continued. We got more decal placement in the cockpit. All of this looks excellent, as you would expect, really, from Kotare. So in terms of reference, you know, you kind of got it included here, which is great. Painting guide all the way through here as well, which looks great. Looks like you have the seat belts as part of the... Well, we'll see. That may or may not be the case. Oh no, it does look like that. Immediately see that. I'm not a huge fan of this. I said it with the Edward Avia S199, including these seat belts. Kind of removes options for you if you wanted to do an in-flight. Oh, you do have the option here. Okay, I take that back. They give you the option of not having the seat belts, so you can have it in flight. So that's even better. That went from a potential negative to a positive. So the construction of the cockpit looks all pretty conventional and pretty nice. But I mean, I'm not going to go through this page by page, but it looks absolutely superb. Reference photos as well. That's pretty mint. Very, very clear, easy to follow. Little pieces called out. I mean, period photos, even detail of riveting work. I mean, this is top notch, as they say. Stencil guide. We all love stencils, right? And then the individual aircraft, and they are individual aircraft again, with period photos of those actual aircraft, which is fantastic. That's an interesting one, isn't it? It looks like it's been plundered from different pieces of 109s, which is perfectly possible. And then the captured one, which is nice to see these. I'm not a great fan of them myself, but good to see. So, absolutely fantastic. Instruction manual, little summary of all of the parts that are included there. I mean, that's beautiful, right? Right, just let me have a look at the... Go back to chat. Sorry, I will put myself on webcam while I just... Not that you particularly want to look at me, but at least better than looking at a piece of paper, I guess. Well, hopefully. So yes, Sully scale models built this kit before I actually had it from the suppliers, which is pretty hot. Made a really nice job of it. If you want to see it being built, I would suggest checking out his channel. He's a very talented modeler. But he says the decals could be a little better. Okay, well, that's an interesting one to know. Steve still plays games, says, Alex, doesn't it cost you a lot of money to show us unboxings? It's not like you can just stick it back on the shelf and sell it for full price afterwards. No, that's true. It does. I mean, the kits like this, it also gives me an excuse to build them, right? I would have probably built the Kotare K4 anyway. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, I buy these kits. They are part of, they are a cost to me as a business. But it's just one of those things I've chosen to do. So I think it gives value to you. If you see that and think, yeah, I'll buy it, and Alex is selling them, and you buy it from me, then it's kind of free advertising in a way. So it's all swings and roundabouts. I've chosen to do this, so I'm not going to complain. And I get to build it. So, well, we talked about the decals, so let's have a look at the decals. Let me use my blunt scalpel. I really need to change this blade. That's terrible. It's because I've been using it for scraping. And I won't say what I've been using it for. Whoop, throw things around. I won't mention what I've been using it for scraping. I'm just going to momentarily show this. Yeah, that Type 45 has a lot to answer for. The hull is all sanded now, though. So, right, let's have a look at these. So, here's the usual. This is the sort of, it always reminds me of the toilet paper that you used to get in public buildings that doesn't actually do anything. Let me know if you remember that. These are cartograph decals, so I'm not sure what issue Sully had with them, because cartograph decals are renowned for being excellent, so not sure. But I mean, they look like standard cartograph decals. Where's Super Macro Vision gone? Oh, there it is. So if I transfer you to Super Macro Vision and just show you some of these, that's not what I'm trying to show you. I'm trying to show you this bit, so you can see. You can read these stencils in actually exceptionally clearly. Okay, that is some of the larger stenciling, but I mean, I'm looking at it from what, 20 centimeter range. That's on the edge of readable, but as you saw very clearly, is readable. I wonder. Actually, let's have a little look at those dials, etc. under Super Macro Vision. I mean, I don't think I could paint that. I'm just saying. Just to give you a, that is my finger. So those the lines in my finger. So kind of gives you an idea of how big or how small these are. These are basically the creases in my finger in width. So they look pretty good. I mean, I can't say what issues Sully had. I must admit I haven't watched the entirety of the video. I tend to skip to the money shots, which is very bad. But as I say, I tend not to watch other people's channels because I partially don't want to pollute my own ideas with other people's ideas and then be accused of plagiarism or something if I do something similar to somebody else at a future date, which I know is silly. I know, more than one person could do the same thing, but it's just a personal thing. The other thing is I just don't have time. So I tend to watch channels that I know I won't do similar things or the style of. Actually, I watch quite a bit of Matt's Model Minutes because he does things that generally a lot of 1/72 stuff that I know I won't. So here we go. First frame I pulled out randomly is the main aerofoil sections the main wing. Lower is all moulded in one piece, as you can see, and as you might expect and heard of with Kotare, if you've not made a Kotare kit before, you may have heard of their reputation with their Spitfires, the Mark 1. These are razor sharp, thin, but deep enough to work well with washes and stuff, but not too deep to look artificial. Some nice both raised and recessed riveting, and fuel access and that kind of thing. If I pull up Super Macrovision, let's put it on the light on Super Macrovision, that might also help. And just have a look at some of those. I mean, you can see the actual screw heads. So it's always difficult to show you frames because the rest of the frame gets in the way. But that gives you look at that. I mean, that is superb. Filler flap there looks like you could actually open that, and those panels with those screws on, that's sublime. So quality of the casting is unparalleled. I haven't seen better casting than this. This is on a par with the best of Tamiya, ICM, Airfix. In fact, probably better than most of those. The way these wings are made with these differential panels is absolutely beautiful. These blisters were for the larger, or fairings I should say, for the larger guns in the wings. We have the landing gear indicators actually as part of these upper wings. So presumably that means there is either no wheels up version, or they expect you to cut those off, neither of which is a terrible thing in my book, but I know some people prefer to make their kits in flying condition. Of course, there's no pilot included here, but that first impression is it's absolutely superb. That is absolutely beautiful. Plastic feels pretty nice. I can't feel any mold release agent on it. Feels like it's got a good amount of flexibility. Doesn't feel tinny or brittle. In fact, as there are some lugs here, feels very much like Airfix or Tamiya plastic. ICM plastic, in fact. It cuts nicely. It's hard without being brittle. That is beautiful. The problem I find with modern kits is they're just too bloody good. It's too tempting. Too many kits. There's too many kits as there are. They keep making better ones. It's just stop. Okay, here is the main fuselage, the wing spar, so here we start to have some of the cockpit pieces. And again, quality here looks great. So you'll have seen this actually on the Airfix kits, the Airfix 109G. If you've seen my or anybody else's view of the 124 scale kit. These pieces, these rear, they weren't really a headrest, but it's just like the back of the cockpit. differed a little bit in some versions. Basically, you've got a little access panel and you can chuck stuff behind there. I think there was a starter handle for the engine and other bits. But it's nice to see you've got different options there. Again, the whole shape of this, because this is quite a complex curve in the K. So the K basically was a simplification of a lot of and refinement of a lot of what had been learned on the F and the G series. So aerodynamically it was cleaner, and a lot of the components where they could replaced metal with wood, because obviously at that time Germany was suffering under Allied heavy bombardment. Got some nice pieces here. There's that long starting handle. I don't know, it's not starting handle, but whatever it is, that little piece on the right hand side of the 109 cockpit. Got that there. I mean, this is all beautifully done. A little bit of detail on the side there, which is going to be at the back of this, I guess. This is going to be the framing of the top of the cockpit. This is the rear, this is the front. This will be where the two machine guns sit for the cowling here. So I think it had MG151s, the 13.5mm in this piece, and as you know, in the G6 they put those big ugly blisters. By the the G10, they had made those a much more aerodynamic fairing, and they carried that on into the case. So you have this lovely sort of curve across here. Fully retractable tail wheel as well. So a lot of the refinements that you see on later models of the Spitfire, for instance. Convergent evolution of design. Okay, we have the fiddly bit sprue, or a fiddly bit sprue. Although I must say, it doesn't look like there are that many fiddly bits. The control column and that long handle piece, I can't remember what it is. I'm sure somebody in chat knows. Seemed about the smallest pieces, and here, you know, the trim wheel and the F loop seem to be a couple of pieces there, which are very, very nicely done, but they're not ridiculously fragile. You know, we've got the rudder pedals. Spinner looks nice. Had, I think that was an MG151 cannon, I think, 20mm going through that, or it was the MK108 30mm, I can't remember. I think that might have been an option. We've got brake lines on the undercarriage legs there. Nice little thing to see, you know, that you don't have to go and get your wire out to do that. And yes, those are the two options. Look, seat belts, no seat belts. So if you want to use aftermarket, or you want to put a pilot in, you've got a nice clean base to go on. That's neat. You know, it's only one extra little part, but that's quite a big thing for me. I think, you know, if they just had this, like Edouard only have this molded into the seat, it's a bit of a pain, and it reduces your options for the build. You know, takes out that in-flight option, which I don't think is a good thing. Having options is always a good thing. Drop tank looks nice. Drop tank fairing on the later Messerschmitts, I always think looks. The actual thing looks toy-like. It looks like it should be more complex, but it's not. It's basically just a strap that goes around the tank, and then these pieces that stop it wobbling about. I mean, very ingenious, not complex, which is not what you want. You want to simplify stuff as much as possible. These oil cooling radiators look pretty good. I mean, there's nothing on this that I can look at and think, oh, I'm not sure about that. All looks very nice. It's very nicely laid out as well. I know that's it doesn't really make a difference, but it's quite aesthetically pleasing. Right, last set of frames before we get to transparencies, of course. Oh, thanks, Travis. It was the 30mm in the... did they have an option then for the 103 as well as the 108? The higher velocity one? Because I know they were basic. So at this stage of the war, fighters were mainly hoping to concentrate on bombers, on bomber destroying, pulse explorers, formation destroyers, because that was what was hurting. So yeah, you can see the two different versions of the horizontal stabilizers here, all as one piece. That's quite nice. So that prevents you getting it at the wrong angle, not perpendicular. So you can see these two different. So it actually says early, and then obviously this will be late. You have the K4 on there, and weighted wheels. So yeah, doesn't look like... Oh, you also have two versions of the... Yeah, that's late and early. Yeah, so, and the big paddle. I mean, you only got these big paddle ones on the later Gs and Ks. And before that it was the much slimmer spinner. Getting more of the power of those late war 605s. But two versions of the control panel, which is nice as well. And yeah, two of the rudder. So it looks absolutely superb, I must say. And it's also less expensive than I expected it to be. With the Spitfire coming out, which was basically £100, £90. Although it's come down a bit, I've got the Brian Lane version in the shop, which is the special edition one. That's only £80. But it's still at the top end for a 1/32 scale kit. Whereas this, RRP of 75, and actually sold for less than 70. Is significantly less. It's still at the top end for a 32nd scale fighter, but if you think about Italieri's MC200, 202 and 204, all of which are £100. Now they do come with engines and other bits, but this is not a terrible... I won't say it's cheap, because it's not, but it's not a terrible value proposition. What you're paying for here is quality, is research, quote unquote accuracy, historical accuracy of the dimensions of this, the way it's made. I mean, those screws in the wings, those different panels, absolutely phenomenal. I don't think I've seen a kit represent that as well as this does. But you are paying for it, so it's, as always, it's one of those things. You pay your money, you take your choice. Let's have a look at the... I might as well use a letter opener. That's terrible. Alex, you're not showing your tools in the best light. Right. Okay, so my first impression is, wow, these are super crystal clear. Hopefully you guys can see there's reflection here, and a bit of distortion because obviously there is a curve here, but the clarity of that is absolutely incredible. There we go, you can get a view there. That's kind of what I'm seeing, is effectively no difference looking through that. That is superb. So obviously you get a couple of versions of the canopy. They differ in the front piece here. You probably can't see it, it's a very minor difference. And then obviously you get options for open or closed. I think it would be a little bit odd, to be honest, to have it closed if you've spent the money to have that. Obviously, unless you're doing it in flight, but then obviously you do need to add pilot and stuff. So this is really nice. Very, very clear. There is a very slight optical distortion in this piece, just around the edges here, but that's because it's thick, because this is the armoured windscreen in front of the pilot, which was, I think it was like 50 millimeters thick or something like that. It's ridiculous. But the clarity of these is as good as I've seen on any kit. I mean, Airfix and ICM are exceptionally good at this. ICM are possibly one of the best. This is definitely as good as, if not better than that. It's just, this piece is just beautiful. I don't want to touch it. I feel just having it open is making it dirty. So that's that Kotare K4. I think I've shown everything, haven't I? With the decals. So I'm going to try and get it all back in the bag now because I will ruin it. As I say, £68 for a 1/32 scale fighter is, for that quality, I don't think bad actually. I don't think that's bad. Top end for sure, but I think the experience of building that is going to be pretty nice. We'll see. When I eventually get to finish my builds this year, I will get onto that. God only knows when that's going to be, because obviously with all the stuff I've been doing, obviously the washes and solvent and all that kind of stuff, clear, which will be coming, I've just not had a chance to get to that stage yet. Right, let me have a quick look at chat. Let me go back a bit, just make sure I'm not missing anything. Howard says, if I wasn't already doing the FX 109, I would be getting this. Yep. I mean, I think the difference between the two is obviously the FX 109 is 1/24 scale. It's big. That is much more manageable if you don't have a lot of space. You're going to get more detail in the FX kit. Obviously, you get the entire engine and stuff. It feels different. Having, obviously I'm building the 109 from FX. I think that's going to be a different build experience entirely. I'm interested actually to see how the two compare now. Anyway, and welcome, Howard. The 103 had the longer barrel with the big muzzle brake. Oh, okay. Those are, yeah. They occasionally used it as underslung, I think, maybe. Well, I mean, the 108 was not exactly a whiz on rate of fire, and it had very poor muzzle velocity. Which is why it's used for bombers rather than an aircraft. Yeah, so Travis, I think you're right. Kotare follow the Hasegawa approach to builds, keeping it simple but detailed. yeah, it. I think if you are going to be, if you are a builder who is focused on finish, you know, the build is secondary to creating your art piece, if you like. You know, it's getting the canvas ready for you to do that paint job, and you know, decaying and the weathering and everything. The Kotare kit, I think, is definitely one for you. If you're not too worried about that, if the painting isn't what turns you on and the build is what you want to do, I'll go for the FX kit every time, because there's so much in there. It feels like a lot, you know. And yes, if you put them in terms of value next to each other, the FX one, you're getting a lot more, for sure. Which isn't how they're compared, right? It's not comparing apples and oranges. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I definitely think they've gone the right way with having the price at a lower price point. Maybe that is because at the moment there are a lot of very high quality kits at that sort of £100 mark. You know, if you think of the Gloucester Meteor from Revell, you know, competition is great, right? The one thing about capitalism, which is, you know, really proving itself, is, you know, companies competing for your dollar, your money, your euro. You know, means they keep continuously innovating and getting better, and we are benefiting from that. And yes, of course, it has no engine. And that is not what the Kotare one is going for, right? It's not going for, here is, you know, you can open every panel and stuff. It is about we're presenting you with the most accurate, the most detailed kit of this subject in this scale, you know. And you can see that because the detail on those wings is better than the Airfix kit, even though it's a smaller scale. So it's a different approach. So which you build, which you spend your money on, or both, completely up to you. You know, there is no wrong way here. So let's come to our third kit, because I notice time is winging its way on, as it always does. Always seems to go very quickly when we're doing this, which I think is a good thing, that it's not dragging on, but it always seems to catch up with us too fast. So, the Willy Ley orbital rocket. Now this is an old kit, right? In fact, if we have a look at scale mates, let's do a quick little. There can't be many. No, the missiles. Wow. Hey, there's some cool stuff here. Look at that. So here we go. So obviously this is a reissue 2024. It was only issued once prior to that in 1959. So this was, in fact, I'm just trying to think. My mum and dad were still at school. They didn't know each other. They weren't at an age where if they'd known each other, anything could have happened. So yeah, that's a long time ago. So 1959 tool, released 2 years ago. Oh, it has 5 figures, really? Okay. Let's have a little look at this. Now this I think I will build, purely because it's just such an oddity, and I think it really speaks of its time. You know, it's the end of the 50s. You know, space was everything. Everything was atomic. You know, everything was. We're all going to live in outer space. This is just going to be. Although I tell you, I think one of the most amusing things about this is that this was predicting the future, because US Space Force, which is now a real thing. So here we go. Willy Ley orbital rocket, with Willy Ley talking to a child with a rocket at a time when that was normal and wouldn't be considered creepy. because it wasn't, right? It was just being educational. Okay. Also showing something of its time, right? A good third of this box is not used. Oh dear. There were good things and bad things about the past, right? Stupidly oversized boxes is not one of the good ones. So, let's have a little look. Orbital, right? I love these 1950s style things. So, I got a lot of this kind of, not this model, but these sorts of things, because I got all my dad's like stuff from when he was growing up, and you know, he was a kid in the 50s. So this is exactly the sort of, you know, he had like Eagle annual and, you know, all of these kinds of things. So this kind of style, even though it's not my era at all, it was still part of my childhood because it was hand-me-downs. So I have a certain fondness for this, a sort of rose-coloured glasses of familiarity that wasn't my own, in a way, sort of second-hand. These kind of drawings, you know, very common in the 40s and 50s. Again, I think this is all the... Oh, no, you do get more broken down instructions, because a lot of instructions from the time were just like, here's a big explaining diagram, go and make it. But this does actually appear to have proper broken down assembly instructions, actually with proper photos. Look at that. So obviously this is it's a work of fiction from the 50s, a view of the future as seen by Willy Ley back then. But obviously science fiction. So it was, as you can see here, we've got, you know, rockets which are recognisably, you know, liquid oxygen hydrogen type rockets, coolant pump stuff and all that kind of thing. You know, based on proper foundational physics properties. Then you have some little play value stuff. You know, you have a retractable landing gear, which is quite funky and quite fun. And it goes through all of this. It's got photos of it putting... This is actually pretty good. I quite like this. You know, especially when, you know, people showing you how to put things on. Modern instructions could do a lot worse. So yeah, this is not, as a set of instructions goes, this is not the worst. I've seen a lot. I mean, border models could learn a lot from this. Oh look, you've got a little launch platform. That's cool. So you've got this sort of like main launch plane thing, and then the orbital rocket part, which goes on that. Very space shuttle-esque in a way, only rather than using a disposable booster, using this reusable boost plane, boost rocket, whatever. And then this little piece that goes on top. So effectively this gets you up into atmosphere, or high atmosphere, and then you've got a boost rocket on this orbital plane that would, I suppose then, like the space shuttle, come back down afterwards. Pretty cool. I like the way it says, only enamel or paintful plastic should be used for painting. So that's cool. It's very retro. I like it a lot. Let's have a look what else we get. Little, so this bucket. Okay, get a little booklet by Willy Ley. Talking about the pseudoscience of it. That's again pretty cool. And decals. Now, obviously, if you bought a 1959 collector's version of this kit, these would have probably long since disintegrated. These look okay. I don't know who they're printed by. Well, I'm not sure who Atlantis used, but they're a US-based company, so I presume it's a US-based decal producer. But colour looks good, registration looks good. I don't see any issues. It's difficult to tell with decals, obviously, until you actually use them. But there's certainly nothing there that screams, oh my god, this looks terrible. US Space Force. Oh dear. Let's have a look at what's in the bag. Everything in one bag. It's very sort of typical single sealed bag kind of affair. And then inside it's very squeaky sounding plastic. Okay. So you have some rivet detail across this, little raised rivets, quite delicate. Some quite obvious sink marks where you have these big lugs. That's the top, I believe, because that is where the transparency goes. Unfortunately, it all being in this bag, you do also have your tiny little transparencies. Now, in terms of optical clarity, let's just deal with this, right? A lot of distortion. Quite a lot of distortion. Yeah, these... I mean, the plastic itself is quite clear, which is probably much better than in the past, but look how thick. I don't know if you can see. There we go. Look how thick that plastic is. Thick and curved is never going to result in something which is exceptionally optically clear. So, very much of its time. Incredibly thin runner for what it is. And that's obviously resulted in this being detached, these being detached, other pieces being detached. Because they're all coloured, you can see exactly where they've come off. But I mean, what's that? We've got 6 pieces detached from the sprue, and we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the frame itself. So that's not a great success rate. Plastic feels weird. Oh, well, there we go. That's just broken off. Well, actually, the fit is pretty good. That is not a bad fit at all. This is weird. It feels light. It feels light. That's what it is. It's like the density of the styrene is not normal. It doesn't feel tinny. It's not a tinny plastic, but it's odd. Slightly, it's kind of flexible, but it does feel very light. It doesn't feel like normal styrene. Again, a lot of really bad sink marks here. Pretty basic pieces. I mean, as you would expect, this is a 1959 tooling. For 1959 tooling, some of these pieces are actually quite fine. Crude in sort of some of the design, but quite fine. And then again, the frame itself. I mean, there is no. It's kind of like a thin channels between pieces. It's not really a frame at all, right? So the rocket itself is this little beast here. I'm going to take that off because it's hanging off. It will be far better than leaving it to detach by itself. Again, this plastic as well, again, it feels very light, like it's low density. It feels odd. I can't quite put my finger on what that is, but it doesn't feel normal. Again, quite a few sink marks in some of these pieces. You know, actually, anywhere really where there's something on the other side, you get a sink mark. But it's quite a fun little thing. There's a little launch station with its little supports. Okay. So, you know the box said 5 figures. These are the figures. Again, sorry, I'm going to have to take off some of these pieces because otherwise they're going to... A lot of flash here, as you can see. Sorry, I'm just going to cut some of this. It's quite soft, not brittle at all. It cuts really nicely. It just feels very strange. Hey, blue sprue goo, anybody? I don't think I've got blue. New limited edition sprue goo coming soon. These are actually quite nice, these wings. Unfortunately they're white, so you can't see it very well. Let's see if I can... No, you can't really angle it. It's got very, very fine riveted detail across here, raised rivet detail. Maybe Super Macro Vision can show us. Yeah, there we go. You can see it. And there, you've got these rivets across there. So you can see those are about the same size, maybe a little bit smaller than those on the Kotare 109. There you can see how fine the lines are for the 109 compared to these 1959, where they've been, you know, scribed in to steel by somebody. Or rather, the material either side was scribed away, machined away. So some nice fine little detail. I mean, you will lose all of that if you want to repair any of the sink marks, but the thought was there. Oh yeah, sorry, I was going to show you. Let me cut these off because this is a really spidery frame, and there's no way I could show you if I didn't do this. These are the figures. Now actually that guy, considering the scale, and he is from 1959, he's not actually too bad. That guy, not so much. That guy, you know, he's got distinct trousers and he's even got hands and things. This guy, not so much. So, did it say 4 figures or 5 figures? I need to look now. 5 figures. So, I can only see 4 there. Where is the last guy? Oh, he's there. There's another one there. There's another one of the toilet blob ones. Then we have this red frame just for that booster rocket piece. We've got a little piece falling off there. That's one of the jets, the rockets. Completely solid, no opening in there. So this is very much of its time. You know, it's not meant to be. It's a stark contrast from the Kotare, obviously, but I think it's quite fun. You know, it is a bit of fun. It was meant as a sort of semi-educational toy, after all. So I think this goes in here, and then this goes on the end of that. I think these attach on here somehow. Something, I don't know. It does feel, maybe that's it, the plastic almost feels toy-like. But of course this is at an age where this is most children's kind of outlet. Well, let's face it, at the time it was directed at boys, obviously, space. You know, even the imagery of Willy Ley talking to a young boy about, you know, the rocket. But it's quite a cool thing. Kind of very retro. Has a cool retro feel about it. And let's face it, this would not be that challenging of a build. It might be challenging to make to more modern standards, but that's not really the point of this. Oh my god, pieces falling off all over. I mean, you've got big sink marks here, which I'm not sure if they're supposed to be open to make the... I think they are. But you could certainly open those out if you wanted to. So yeah, I think it's got potential. I think this would be quite a nice little build. Let me know if you want to, if you want me to have a go at this. Because I think I probably will build it. It's just obviously whether I bother filming it or not. In terms of, could Atlantis have done something a little bit more with the packaging and how it was presented? That's a difficult one, isn't it? It's like, do you change the original feel of it to try and make it a little bit more polished, perhaps? Or do you try and give that authentic feel? To me, I think the authentic feel isn't deprecated. It's not changed by a little better packaging, to be honest. This is pretty shitty packaging, and nothing about it makes me feel good about the kit. The actual sprues inside it give you that retro feel, and the subject, I don't think, well, rather, I think they could have done better in how they presented it. I don't really want to put that back in as it is. In fact, let's use one of these Kotare bags. In fact, I should have used the Kotare bag for the whole thing. It's a much better bag. In fact, let me switch over to the webcam. You don't need to see me putting it here, but this would do much better in a Kotare bag. Even the Kotare bag even is better quality. It just feels quality. It's weird how a few microns of extra thickness can change your perception. You know, our sensory system, our fingers and stuff, are very good at picking up these things. Surprisingly good. This is a shitty bag. Now the Kotare bag, nice bag. This bag nice. This bag bad. Not Baghdad. Bag bad. Completely different. I'm going to use this because it's lighter for the transparency, and then pop the transparency into the good Kotare bag, which instantly makes it feel better somehow. And that can all go back. It must be said as well, just before I go on, shitty box, thin, again, I don't know if they're just going for the the authentic experience, but the authentic experience is not helped by a shit box. Plus, you're more likely to get a broken kit, which is not going to do anything for your experience. So I like this. This is cool. I think they could have done better with how they presented it, and how they just better quality box for one thing. I know I probably talk about boxes too much, but to me they're an important part of the overall package, because this is not good at all. And especially when you're putting, made in the USA, it's like, that is not a good endorsement if it's shit. Sorry. Is that too blunt? Let me just have a look, see if I missed any comments. Oh, Matt has ducked out. Good to see you, Matt. Thanks for dropping in. It is a gopping shade of blue, indeed. It's certainly vivid, let's say. Maybe this is a cancelled Flash Gordon prototype, yeah. So yeah, I guess that transparency does hide the fact that there is. I mean, those pilots are basically the interior. There is no interior. I think what I would actually do is perhaps make a little, just block off that cockpit area. Maybe put some little plastic hard consoles and stuff just to make it look a little bit less empty. Okay, it seems like you do want me to build the rocket. Fair enough. Yeah, you probably, but well, I'm sure there are astronaut figures, STLs, that you could use, especially with Artemis being around now. You could probably get that and use those. So that was interesting. I enjoyed that one. Let's see. We've got a real mix of old and new, and that was an interesting one. So from the very old nostalgia kind of build, I mean pre-nostalgia because it predates me by quite some time, we come to the very new. So this came out, these came out about a month ago. So this, I think it was this month, ICM actually released a Marauder including this crew as well. So if you don't want to buy them separately, or don't want to buy these for another kit or whatever, you can buy the entire package now. Obviously at less than buying the two components. I've got bits of that blue plastic in my field of view. Look, they're still here. Go away. Why is that now extended to have this little piece of my desk? That's weird. Oh, have I've probably moved the... Yes, I have. I've slightly moved the camera. Apologies for that. So yes, the B-26 Marauder. So this includes 4 figures, 2 pilots, the bombardier, stroke navigator, and rear gunner. So these are pretty good. I think they're £11 for these. Anybody who knows ICM figures, they are pretty exceptional. Can't get this damn box open. So this is going from the sublime to the ridiculous. Before we had a box that fell apart at a bit of a stiff breeze. Now we have the ICM box, which can withstand a nuclear blast. And I'd already cut off all of the, see, it's held in tape. There are 5 pieces of tape holding this box closed before. So, as with all of ICM figures, or figure boxes, obviously you get the ubiquitous ICM paint leaflet, the frame, and then the frame with paints, and then you get basically a painting guide, which also shows you, where they are, and then where you would put them in, obviously their own kits. If you're using them in somebody else's, you're going to have to figure that out yourself. In terms of the actual building of them, they don't explain them because, I mean, basically they are pretty self-explanatory of how to put a body together, right? So let's have a little look. Okay, so we have 4 figures divided into the 4 quadrants, so it's easy to find each one and all the parts. Let's just put that across the side a second. I will go to super macro vision in a minute, so you guys can see these. So these are all in flight jackets, typical US gear, and typical ICM quality. Really good. Their figure sculptor is a physical sculptor, so he does all of this with green stuff, milliput, physically sculpts these, and then they are rendered into CAD. He doesn't design on CAD, and he's a talented guy. You can just tell when you look at pieces like the hands and the poses. So let's have a closer look. So yeah, I mean, you can tell when you get the cap, and it's got the cap badge on. Very nicely sculpted and posed. Even down to sort of texture on the back of the hands. A little bit of flash in the crook of the hand there. Oh, we're looking up his nose. That's probably not as intended. These are obviously 1/48 scale. So, life jacket over the flight suit. Great big thick boots. Sorry, again, this is quite difficult to do with the way that this is set up. Even got the zip on the trousers there for the flight pocket. Let's see. Let's have this guy. Got this guy holding. Well, first of all, he's crouching down. So that's your 2 halves of the leg. Back of his jacket, and he's holding this pad or clipboard. It's pretty cool. His cap. Oh, sorry, I just turned off the light there for a second. Let's come back. So the sculpts on these are great. The detail in them, in the faces. think this is the gunner. Yeah, here are his hands going on the guns. Which one haven't I done? Is it this one? No, that's the first one. Must be this guy then. Yep, it's this guy. It's this guy because I don't recognise him. I mean, to say that you can recognise individual faces in 1/48 scale kind of gives you how good these sculpts are. So great detail. Again, 48 scale is not big. Sorry, making you wobble quite a lot there, and I've changed the angle again. So again, given that, for instance, that face is that big on my finger, the guy we just saw, and yet you can see his eyes. Quite phenomenal sculpting. These go together really well as well. ICM figures, I've found, always go together really well. So a lot of skill captured in a very, compact frame. They're going to add, I think, a lot of character to one of these Marauder models. So pretty good, I think. So guy with the pad is co-pilot, obviously. Pilot, gunner, and the bombardier stroke navigator. Pretty nice. I do like ICM figures. So yeah, there we go. Compact little thing. But in terms of value, if you think £11, so less than £3 a figure, how much time it's going to take you to put them together? Almost none. To paint them, to do them justice, is going to give you, hours of hobby time. And what they're going to add then to, a model like this, I think is quite a lot. So, nice set. Okay. Craig, yes, sorry, I mentioned last night on the Artemis stream that I would, because of the Artemis stream last night, that I was going to postpone the model meet and unboxing to today. So, Simon says, "Oh heck, a bit late. I've already built the aircraft and then find out they've released the crew." Yes, I'm the same. So, I mean, it has been, what, 18 months or so since that B-26 was released. Amazingly, that's when I did that 24-hour build that drifted to 26 hours. And, yeah, I don't think I could get the crew in it now. Okay, yeah, another good set of anyone tempted to drill the nostrils of those 148 ICM figures? No. Yeah, drilling out gun barrels I think is enough, or replacing them with rod is enough, definitely. So 2152, don't think I've got time to pull up the next one, because that is the border model Luke's which is quite an involved kit, as a lot of border models kits, a lot of parts in that one. Although I am looking forward to that. The Luke's, obviously the L model of the Panzerkampfwagen 2. I've always thought it's a very attractive little light reconnaissance tank. It looks quite cool. If again, weapons of destruction can be thought of that way. So yeah, don't think we've got enough time to cover that in 8 minutes. So if there's any questions or anything you'd like to see that I haven't shown out of those kits tonight, I'm happy to. Out of all of them, I mean, the Kotare Bf 109, objectively beautiful. I think everybody should probably do a Kotare kit at some point to experience it, because the feeling of that, it feels like a luxury product. It feels like quality. Very different from an Airfix kit. Not that Airfix kits aren't well made, but it's a different type of experience. And I think just from opening that and looking at it and going through the parts, I think that build is going to be a different type of experience than the Airfix 109, which is not to say that both aren't good, just different, right? The Willy Ley orbital rocket, I think, is a lot of fun, despite the fact that it is the polar opposite to that 109 in terms of quality. It feels like Atlantis were just like, we found this tooling, it was only ever produced once, we'll squirt it out and put it in the cheapest box we can find, and go on that retro kind of wave. Somehow it works for all of that. It doesn't feel like you're getting quality. It feels like a little piece of the past, but not a quality piece of the past. It feels a bit... It's fun. That is fun. The 109K doesn't feel like fun. It feels like... I mean, if you think about it in restaurants or something, it would be going to a really nice restaurant that really only uses locally sourced ingredients. The provenance of everything is great. The quality of it is great. It's not nouvelle cuisine, so you feel like you're getting a decent meal. You're not too full. You're not hungry. It's just you're immersed in the beautiful surroundings. It's that kind of thing, I think. Whereas the FX 109, I think, is more eating in a nice hotel. Where you've got good food and it's not beautiful surroundings, but it's nice. Like a more modern kind of thing. And there's a lot of food. There's a lot of different courses. You can gorge yourself, but it's not that premium experience, if you kind of see what I'm saying. The Willy Ley is like going to a like a funky mom and pop's old diner, that's like dirty. Like, you're sure you spotted a cockroach there, but it reminds you of your childhood or a time that has passed, like a 50s diner. So it's fun. It's not something you would do all the time. That's kind of the feel to me of those kits. The Marauder crew, I think, is a little bit outside of that, because they are, they're figures for an aircraft. They're typically ICM figures, which are just very, very good. It's kind of like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm getting here. It's going to be really good. The end result is going to depend on my figure painting skills. That's kind of very different from those 3 kits that we looked at. The Henry Morgan pirate ship, I would say, actually, of all of them, I was sort of quite excited about looking at that. Of all of them, it's kind of the least engaging for me. It feels like a bit. Finding out that it was a 1990s kit kind of kicked it a bit in the balls for me. It's because that feels like it was made around the same time as that Willy Ley orbital rocket, but it wasn't. It was made 34 years after that. That's a lot. That's a lot. So, yeah, Sir Henry Morgan. I like the sails. I think the sails are a really good. In fact, probably the best part of that kit. In terms of the idea of it and what I would take into modern shipbuilding. I think injection molded sails. Yeah, why not? That's proved that it can be done pretty well. The rest of the kit, not so much. Simon says, we're tempted at Bolton to purchase a Kotare Spitfire Mark 1 from Tiger Hobbies. So Tiger Hobbies is where I get my Kotare kits from. So Tiger are an importer, so they import things like Gecko and Kotare and others. They do sell retail, but they always give. So I spoke to Gary on many occasions. He rang me after I placed my last order and we had a chat. So he sells to retail, but he gives us as traders the same deals that he's putting on, so we can have the option of selling below his retail price. So I generally sell at the same or less than Tiger Hobbies do. And Gary's very transparent about the way he does business, which I appreciate. He's a good guy. So he doesn't do stupid 30% sales direct to customers. So yeah, I get my Kotare stuff. So that's where I've got the, for instance, the Brian Lane special edition ones I get through Gary at Tiger Hobbies. So so for me, I wanted to do the 109, the Kotare 109, rather than the Spitfire, because the early Spitfires don't really do it for me. It's not until you get to the Mark 5 and they started putting cannons on the thing, and I think the Mark 9 is probably my favourite Spitfire. I think when you go to the Griffin engine versions, it loses something. The pilots kind of said the same thing. It got more power, but it lost a little bit in terms of manoeuvrability because it was heavier. So it was faster, but it didn't improve the overall handling. It was still on the same curve as that. Whereas I think pilots said universally that the Mark 8 was, which had some of those refinements that we talked about in the 109K, like the retractable undercarriage and everything, tail wheel, that is, made it the ultimate dogfighter. It still retained that lightweight nimbleness with the more powerful Merlin engine. So finesse, that's a very good word, Howard. I think that is exactly the word to describe the both the Spitfire actually and Kotare. It is finesse, whereas Airfix is good. Tamiya's good, high quality, well made. Kotare is just that little bit extra. It's just having your beautiful dessert, and they also do one of those amazing sugar structures. That when you touch it, it breaks into 1,000 pieces and it's gilt or whatever. It just feels very high quality, very like finesse. Yeah, it's. So I think I would recommend that Kotare 109 to anyone. I think it looks fantastic. I'm quite excited about that. If only I hadn't made the FX one. It's not that I'm 109'd out. And I say it's a very different experience. It's just sometimes you want a little bit of you know, steak is great, but if all you eat is steak, you know, mashed potato looks really appealing. Anyway. And no, yeah, you wouldn't want your models to break to 1,000 pieces. That's that's for sure. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed those models and it gave you some insights. My takeaway is probably don't build a Henry Morgan pirate ship. But William Ley orbital rocket, it's a fun thing. The Kotare K4, I would recommend every day of the week. The Marauder crew, if you're thinking of doing a B-26 of any description, I think they add quite a lot of character, beautiful sculpts. So yeah, hopefully that was instructive and somewhat entertaining. Thanks for joining me tonight. Have a great rest of your week. We don't have much of it left because it's the bank holiday weekend, of course. So whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoy Easter. The shop will be open over the entirety of Easter. I took last week off so that I could open. One of the reasons was so that I could open over Easter. So if anybody does want anything, I will be in the shop. Obviously, I can't post on Friday or Monday, but I can on Saturday. So if anybody wants anything, you know, put your orders in as normal, and they'll get processed and posted out. What the Royal Mail make of them, that's another thing. But anyway, guys, thanks very much, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye now.